Good morning. Welcome to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. This morning we're going to be talking about one of the most important factors when it comes to planning for your retirement, and that's where the income in retirement is going to come from. One of the things that is the biggest consideration when you're looking at how you're going to maintain your standard of living and quality of life when you retire has to do with income. And where's that income going to come from? When the wages go away, when you're no longer working and you're dependent on what? Social Security, maybe a pension, and your savings? What other resources might be available for you to provide you income in retirement? Well, one of those things, and we've talked about it before on the show, is in getting creative in ways to of course get that income. I talk all the time about how you invest, making sure you're saving enough, making sure that that money is working as hard for you as you work for it to provide you the necessary income, stay ahead of inflation, be able to pay taxes. We're at a historically low interest rate environment right now, so it's tough to save, to accumulate more on your savings. We're at historically low tax rates, and yet we see debt and deficits rising dramatically. All of that tells us that, one, we're looking at higher tax rates in the future, and two, most likely with the Fed policies, we're also looking at higher inflation in the future. How do you plan for that? How are you going to stay ahead of that? Well, we're going to talk about one area that you can, it's a little known part, if you will, or a little used strategy. And this is about your home, okay? Your home is another asset. For some folks, maybe you've purchased a larger home thinking you would downsize when you retired. Or maybe, you'd sell the house, you'd be able to get extra cash out of the house and go buy another house. Well, here's something I want to share with you about that. Some recent articles that have appeared in Money News, on Yahoo.com. These this is quotes, for instance, from Schiller. If you recall, he's just won the Nobel Prize in Economics, and he's talking about the potential for another housing bubble. And we're thinking, a housing bubble? How can we have a housing bubble? Housing has dropped so much. Well, let me give you some examples of this. For instance, did you know that new interest rates are increasing, of course, for home mortgages? The FHA has defaults more than it has assets to support those defaults. And the economy is slowing. It's not picking up. We're still having troubles with unemployment, with jobs, and of course with the amount of money people are making. 28% of all mortgages in the United States are still underwater. So are we saying you shouldn't have a home? No, but you got to look at, when they're talking about a housing recovery, there's a story out of that really shows this more than anything, and this is in Phoenix, so this could easily apply to certain areas right here in Middle Tennessee as well. And this is as an $800,000 home out there in 2006, sold for as little as $300,000 after the bubble burst at that time. All right. Well, there's a recent article in the Phoenix newspaper talking about how housing is up 25%. Well, that means if you bought that house at $300,000, okay, for $300,000, it sold originally for $800,000. It's now worth $375,000. I guess that's a housing bubble if you're the guy that bought it for $300,000, but is it a housing recovery rather for the person that bought it at $800,000? If you bought a house at $800,000 and it dropped to $300,000 in value and it's now up to $375,000, do you feel like you're in a housing recovery? So these are some things to consider on your own home as well. And there's some things going on. One of the areas, and I have clients that have done the same strategy. They thought, well, or maybe it's a farm they bought. Maybe it's, they're going to sell. Eventually, they figure when they got older, when they got tired of trying to keep up with it, they would sell it off and be able to move into something else. But when you look at unemployment rates, when you look at the job situation, when you look at people that are now having to work part-time jobs because of Affordable Health Care Act, among other things, so incomes are actually down rather than up. Okay, we've actually seen, now inflation has gone up and yet people's wages have come down, putting even more of a squeeze, and there are other factors we're going to get into this morning. What does all this mean? It means you got to be more creative and more open to looking at things to help make sure you're going to be able to have that income. And here's some things that have changed recently. We've had on before Chip Kandrak with First Bank Mortgage talking about reverse mortgages. And for some folks, this may be the difference between maintaining your standard of living and quality of life throughout your lifetime, or having to reduce those, possibly even losing your home over time, especially if you can't sell it in this marketplace. So and if prices were to drop further, what we have is a unique opportunity here. There's been some recent changes, and I've invited Chip back on the program to talk about these with regard to reverse mortgages and how the rules have changed. So if you were looking at reverse mortgage, say 3 to 6 months ago, or even 2 to 3 months ago, things have changed as of October 1st. We're going to get into those changes this morning. Here's the other part of it I want you to think about. Again, on income, historically low interest rates, so we can take advantage of that. Historically low taxes could be a benefit to us if we act now in positioning ourselves to take advantage of these things. With the record deficits and record debt, we know these things aren't going to last. Here's the other thing. We have another big change coming up the end of this year with regard to reverse mortgages and how that could impact you. And that's another area I want you to understand, because what it means is we basically got a very short time frame, just a couple of months, to take advantage of what may be a one-time opportunity to help position yourselves just to give you a little extra, kind of like an emergency fund, if you will, or a safety net might be a better way to say it. So here's a way we can do a safety net. You can still control everything, and we're going to get into this and more this morning. But first I want to welcome Chip with First Bank. And Chip, one of the areas here I want to get into, and let me just say, by the way, folks, if you got any questions or comments, there's a number on your screen, 737+, 737-7587. You're welcome to join as we go through this morning, talking about these different matters with, again, any questions or comments you may have that we can be of help to you. All right. Big changes as October 1st was the start, but even bigger changes coming January 1st that I think are even more of a concern. But let's just talk first off, let's set the table, Chip. If you can talk about, again, about what a first mortgage is, the FHA component, help people understand just the basic facts. And by the way, one quick thing, we're going to have a brochure that Chip's brought for us that we're going to offer up to you through the program. We'll get a number on the screen where you'll be able to get this. We'll get Chip's information up there as well as how you can contact him. You'll be able to call my office to get these as well. And so through the morning we'll get that to you. Okay.
Reverse mortgage has been around for over 20 years. It's a program that's created by the federal government. It's FHA guaranteed. It's a program that was created back when we had people in Washington who cared about folks over 62, and it's a program that's simple to qualify for right now. Now, it's easy to qualify for. You have to be 62, and you have to have some equity in your home. It works best. The smaller the mortgage you have, the better it works. The more money you'll qualify for, but it'll work for folks who have a mortgage up to about 50% of their mortgage. Mm-hmm. And again, it depends on your age, because the older you are, the more money you'll qualify for as well. Yep. So the bottom line is it kind of fits the borrower. It depends on your circumstances. It's a program that's fast. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks to do it. There's no qualifying on income for right now, no qualifying on income or assets or credit. Right. It takes a few phone calls. We do an appraisal to actually ascertain what the value of your home is. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're free to do the loan if you'd like to. It's it's your option. There's never a time when you have to do it, but you're right, it does bolster people's retirement life.
And here's one of the things, and this is one of the things I tell my kids all the time. They'll come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, do you think I should, take a jacket along? Do you think it's going to be cold or sunny? We'd heard maybe we'd have some rain. Should I take an umbrella?" And as I tell them, you're always better, take it, because it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
That's
and
right.
This is where, if you can, reverse mortgage to me, this is kind of, it's like buying insurance. There's going to be a cost to getting it set up, and we'll get into the cost as well. So there's going to be a cost involved, just like on any mortgage. In other words, you're going to have some closing costs. You're going to have maybe an appraisal, so there's some fees, okay? Think of it as insurance. Once it's in place, now you own it. You got it locked in. If values go down, that's okay, you're protected, you still have that locked-in value that you can access. And if things go up, guess what? It can actually adjust up as well. So it can position you to where you can maybe pay a little insurance, have it sitting there, whether you use it now or just have it, you know, saved in place for the possibility of use later. May be the best time to take advantage of it. And it's one of the things, Chip, things are going to change, right? Come January 1, like right now, as you mentioned, age 62, there's no financial qualifying. As long as you have equity in your home and you're 62-year-old, you qualify.
Correct.
Now, you're going to go through a counseling part.
Correct. Yeah, if they thought of everything, there's a counseling part that's about 15 to 20 minutes on the telephone. You don't have to go anywhere. It's done in the privacy of your home. And if there's two spouses, then you can do it on a speakerphone. But the government just wants to make sure that you hear the facts from somebody other than just Hank and I. They want you to talk to an uninterested third party, and they'll tell you the same kind of things that we'll tell you. So that's part of it. It's required.
Basically, they want to make sure you get the facts.
That's exactly right. And before we can even do an application or do an appraisal or anything, you have to go through the counseling so you understand.
Okay. And we're going to talk about the importance of that when it comes to the timing of this when we come back. And again, we're also going to get into the changes that are coming January 1st. There was some changes in October 1st that have reduced, some of the availability in terms of how much of your equity is available. That part is small, though, compared to what's coming January 1st, and we'll get into that as soon as we come back. So join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.